Hello you gorgeous people out there, and welcome back to another video on the Rocket Hub. My name is Philip, and today we are going to talk about the flight of SN10. But at the beginning, I have to call out a bit of a disclaimer, because this video will be a lot different from what you're used to. This is really spontaneous. Originally, I wanted to upload a video of me live reacting to Starship SN10's flight, but sadly, the audio of that clip got corrupted by a lot, so I couldn't use it for today's video. To at least get something ready for today, I decided that I was just going to talk a bit to you and share my thoughts on the SN10 flight and analyze everything I noticed in a similar fashion I did it around a month ago in my SN9 video, to at least get something ready for you today. So, with that disclaimer being out, I hope you can enjoy it. Anyway. On the evening of Wednesday, March the 3rd, SpaceX's Starship prototype SN10 lifted off the pad for the third high-altitude test flight of the Starship vehicle, trying to finally stick the flip-and-burn landing maneuver. And as most of you might already know, it did indeed stick the landing. This time we hadn't any problems with the header tank or not relighted Raptor engines. SN10 relit all three of its engines, flipped around, shut down two of those engines again, and placed itself on the landing pad under the power of a single Raptor engine. And of course, everybody was excited and cheering, including myself, for around 8 more minutes, until SN10 decided to become an exploding rocket and reflew itself a lot quicker than expected. So now Starship has a landing success rate of 1 out of 3 and a 100% explosion rate. That's perfect, isn't it? Can't get any better, I guess. Now I'll go on and tell you every weird bit I noticed during the flight and analyze it. Or more during the landing, because the rest was pretty smooth. But one thing during the ascent really impressed me. Just look at this shot of Starship SN10 during the short hover phase right before entering the belly flop at apogee. You can really see how insanely windy it is up there at around 10 kilometers above the ground, just by watching the clouds coming out of the different vents being pushed away at a high speed. And even more crazy, SN10 sits in the middle of those winds and doesn't even care about that, showing how well the single Raptor engine can translate against that movement. Also, the hover phase at apogee seems to get shorter from flight to flight. I mean, SN10 didn't even last a single minute, though. Up there was just going up, stopping for a bit, and going down immediately. SN8 just chilled like a quarter of the flight up there. It's getting faster and faster, and the hops get shorter and shorter. And then we get to the landing phase. At the first moment, everything looks absolutely perfect. All engines relit successfully and didn't run on their own interiors like SN8 did, and they were able to correct the momentum of the flip maneuver. Although it's funny to see how much the single Raptor used for landing burn had to overcorrect, because the triple engine relight pushed Starship SN10 quite a bit away from the landing pad, which it was pretty funny to imagine that the Raptor engines were too powerful for the correct landing path. And then SN10 landed in a giant plume of dirt, leaning quite a bit and burning at the bottom, but no one cared about that in a moment because it was standing. I mean, we've never seen a Starship survive a landing flip maneuver before, so that was pretty awesome. But despite landing successfully, SN10 almost shared the fate of its sisters SN8 and SN9. The landing was pretty rough. I mean, SN10 hit the ground at around 15 miles per hour. That's a bit too fast. I mean, they want to get it to 0 when they land. Now they had around 15. That's a bit too high. That resulted in standing on its engine skirt rather than the landing legs. You can actually see it bouncing off back into the air because it hit the pad too hard before shutting off its engine. Speaking of the landing legs, I mean, SpaceX, please fix those. Out of 6 legs, 3 performed well, and the other 3 just, decided to swing around under the vehicle, having a great time, but caused the working trio to collapse on the weight of SN10, making them basically useless. And if that wasn't enough, Elon let us know on Twitter that the last Raptor used for the landing burn did underperform quite a bit because it didn't provide the thrust SpaceX wanted it to provide. So they have to fix something there. And that explains why the landing was so much harder than expected, because if there's not enough power to slow it down, you're getting to hit the floor a bit harder than you want. But luckily, it was not fast enough to explode on impact, which isn't important anymore because it did it later on. But at least it didn't share the fate of SN8 and SN9. And that's also why SN10 ended up its existence in the big boom. Smashing it to the pad like it did isn't that helpful, and certainly did destroy many parts in its interior, resulting in a methane leak and rapid unscheduled disassembly, how we spaceflight enthusiasts like to call a big explosion. Well, was it unscheduled? I mean, I guess if it wouldn't have exploded on its own, I believe that Elon would have triggered the flight abort system. Just for fun. We know this guy, come on. So, SpaceX has still a lot to improve on Starship to really make it work, but they are getting better and better from flight to flight. This flight of SN10 marks one of the biggest milestones the Starship program has ever experienced, and we should all be excited about that and just ignore the explosion afterwards, because even if it exploded afterwards, it was a really successful day for the future of spaceflight. So let's just appreciate that, and yeah, the explosion is just a firework for the celebration. And because this is an emergency video, that's already it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, despite being a bit shorter and a bit more improvised than on other days. But if you did so, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, would help me a lot. I'm out. Cheers.